In this lesson, we will refine the initial attack of the villain. Before getting started, I'd like to point out that we're on the home stretch. We don't have much to do. And to prove this, let's go ahead and create a preview. So I'm going to go ahead and use Shift F so we can view our safe range. And then we'll go ahead and scrub through just to make sure both characters are still in shot. Next, we'll smooth out their animation, starting with the heroine. We'll just go through and select all of her keys from 0 on and set our tangents to auto. Let's do the same for the villainess. Okay. I'll now head over to our layer manager so we can hide our controls. No need to hide these shapes at all. These are our connect curves that allow us to find our elbow and knee controls faster. But they won't show up in our render. Now to create a preview, we have a few ways of doing this. We can either do this from the Tools menu, grab Viewport, here it is, create animated sequence file, or another way, let's do this from the top left of the viewport. I'll click on this plus icon, and here we'll find Create Preview. So heading over to the Animated Sequence File dialog, you can go ahead and set these to whatever you'd like, but I'm going to just go ahead and leave these set to the default settings. If you were to change anything, it may be your file size. You might want a higher resolution, but again, I'm just going to go ahead and work with what we have here. I'll pause the video, and when I come back, we'll see our animation. Here it is. Very neat. So again, there isn't much to do. Sure, there are a few areas that are a bit floaty, and you could also see that some of the timing is pretty fast, way too fast than it needs to be. But remember, in the blocking phase, we just throw in our idea, and then at that point, we could start to offset keys to create follow-through and a sense of drag. And then we can add keys to add more weight to, let's say, the villainess as her limbs fall. So those are some things that we need to fix, at least on her. And then for our heroine, we need to make sure she just doesn't come to a dead stop at the very end. That's the main thing we need to fix, but there are a few other areas that we'll need to also touch up, making sure that our arcs are present and that overall every pose is very readable. All right, so let's say we move back to 3ds Max and get right to work. I'll turn off Save Frames. We'll go back to our layers so we can show our control objects. Okay, next, I'd like to keep the heroine's animation blocked since it's not time to refine her just yet. Our key should still be selected, so let's go in and set our animation back to stepped. We'll also need to change our default tangent type. Let's go ahead and use auto so we can start setting smooth keys. And we're ready to begin. So getting started here, let's go ahead and take a look at the timing at which the villainess enters. You can see it's a little bit too slow. So I'd like to go in and grab all of her controls, grab the key on frame 6, and move that one frame over to 5. So that happens a little bit faster. You can see that already the intro looks much better. I kind of like the timing now. And I'd say what we need to work on next is the actual attack. And before we do, you can see that we have a few extra keys on our track bar from the heroine's animation. This is just like what we've cleaned up on the heroine. Keyframes that were tied to the villainess. So I'll just go through and quickly remove those, just so we don't have much to clean up in our curve editor. All right, so on 13, we can go ahead and remove that keyframe. I'll just right-click and choose Delete Selected Keys. 19 we need. 20 we can go in and remove. 22 also. and 24. Okay, great. So now that our timeline's clean, we can start to really polish this attack. So what I'd like to do is add an in-between to make this attack really appear to be threatening. You can see right now it's not at all. The arm is broken at this point. So what we want to do is create a drastic change from 3 to 5 so that there is a strong swipe. So what I'll do is head over to frame 3 and grabbing the wrist control, we'll go ahead and rotate the blade back and over, and then we'll also translate the arm over. We'll bring it a bit higher, and already that's starting to look threatening. As if our heroine better block or dodge this attack, otherwise it's not going to end well. The elbow's up way too high on 3, so I'll just go ahead and drop that down a bit. Then I'd like to angle the wrist a bit more for something a bit more natural in this pose. I've just brought it over a bit in the y-axis. And here's what we end up with. Now when she comes in and swipes, it's a lot stronger. We can hit play to take a look at the timing. Great. Let's also tweak the left arm. And we'll make sure that this is offset from the right by just 1 frame. So we'll go to frame 2. And I also like to keep track of our arcs. Max has this feature integrated in, and I really enjoy using it. It's called trajectories, and we'll find that under our motion panel. Here they are. So this shows us the path of action that our selected object travels. So it's just a great way to make sure that arcs not only exist, but that they flow in a very believable way. So I'll now go to frame 2 and start to fix the arm. Just bring that up a bit. We can go to the elbow and do the same. Notice the elbow's path is already improved. I'll go ahead and stretch the arm out a bit more so she can open up some for her powerful attack. And then we could also rotate the wrist up. Okay, great. Taking a look at the elbow, I might want to bring it up a bit higher. It almost appeared to flat line, so I just want to make sure we have a nice line of action here in the arm. And there we have it. A very nice intro. Keep in mind that there may be a few areas that we'll want to tweak. I like to wait to the very end of the animation to do that. So once we're done with our polish pass, we can then go ahead and double check everything. So even though we may finish a section on our animation, that doesn't necessarily mean that it's complete. We might need to go back and touch up a few areas. But I think that this is going to work out very well. I'll go ahead and turn off trajectory. Sometimes that gets a bit distracting for me, so I like to go ahead and just turn that off when I don't need to see them. And now the next thing we'll do is focus on the feet to finish up this lesson. So what we'll first do is adjust the left foot so that when it plants it doesn't slide the way it does. And then we'll go ahead and correct its timing to make sure that it plants earlier so that the body can remain balanced. We need to do the same thing for the right foot, and those will be our last task before we finish up. So let's go ahead and move back to the left foot. We'll grab the leg control. Let's take a look here. It kind of slides over on 15. So let's go ahead and just translate that in. The x-axis. And I'm looking at the flow from 5 to 15 just to make sure again we have a nice plant. Now we'll need to copy this key from 15 to 19 so we don't have this unnatural sliding. So I'll just hold down shift and drag the key from 15 to 19. Beautiful. Alright, so once that has been tweaked, we can now have the left foot plant sooner. Since 19 is the same as 15, no need to add any extra keys for our plant, unless you planned on adding more to the animation around this time. But we could always go ahead and grab 15 and just drag that so it's 2 frames after 5, so that we have this very natural plant. Very nice. And let's do the same thing for the right foot. So that comes in and it plants, but it needs to happen sooner, just a few frames before it actually does. So I'll move the key on 15 to 13 and take a look at that. Great, so now the feet plant as they should, and then the body settles in. Let's go ahead and play this back just to take a look. Already we have a very nice intro. Very cool. Exciting. All right, great. Well, let's go ahead and stop the lesson here. In the next lesson, we will work on what happens after this first attack.